Alright folks, I got an interesting one. This one's turned out to be a little bit of fun. It's a 2009 Pontiac Grand Am GT with a 3.9 and the wiper control motor, or I tried putting another one in it from the junkyard just to make sure it wasn't that, because it's easy to do. It's not that. So what we have is it works on high, but it doesn't work on any other setting, either the low or the intermittent. So I pulled up this wiring diagram, and we can see here we have this 5 volts, or I'm sorry, 5 amp or 10 amp fuse that feeds this yellow wire coming down here with positive voltage. And so it shows you 2 sets of switches here, but they're the same switch. And so that puts voltage out to the washer pump. And then this goes to the intermittent right here. Then low and high are both connected over here. But high also comes around from the switch directly up to here. But these come out of the body control module. So we're gonna have some resistance on here, 1780 ohms plus whatever this resistance is on the intermittent. So that's gonna reduce that voltage. So it's not gonna light a test light, so we'll have to use a meter. And then I'm gonna check on this gray wire to see what kind of voltage we get, to see if we're getting the correct inputs to the body control module for the switch. And then if we are, we have this yellow, which is park, that parks the motor. And then we have this dark green, which should be putting out some voltage to power up this relay and turn on the low speed to the wiper motor. So we're going to check that next, but right now I want to check this gray. This is going to tell me, am I getting the correct inputs from the switch? So it should be 1780 ohms. That's probably about 2 to 3 volts. And then that voltage will drop off down to like less than a volt when you get over here to 2.2 kilo ohms, which then adds to the 1.7 kilo ohms, right? So we're going to see what those voltages are. So what I have to do is pull up a connector diagram. This is X2, right? Then you have to find the wire. It's number 57. It's the gray wire, which I am back probed into, right? So now we're gonna measure that and see what happens. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've got that hooked up. Go ahead and hook up my meter here. Move my test light out of the way. Let me clean all this up and I'll set it up here for you. Okay, so I'm probed into the gray wire where I should get some reduced voltage, and that should change with the with the intermittent settings. And then I'm on 20 volt scale, plugged in with my red one there. This is hooked to a ground which runs back to the battery. So let's go ahead and turn this on. Okay, we're gonna turn this off. That's high, low. And then this is intermittent. So we'll move that all the way up. We get 2.17 at the top. So that's the least resistance. Then as the intermittence comes up, 1.61, 1.23, 1.9, 0.69. And we'll go back through them. And then on high, oh, this is low. So this should tell it to run low. And that should also tell it to run high, which it has to leave that engaged so that it can energize the relay, basically. So that high goes direct back on one wire, but it leaves this relay for the low side engaged. And yeah, so that switch is working. But I'm not getting the controls to the wiper control motor. So now we're going to check the other wire, the dark green, and see if we're getting a signal coming out of that. And if we're not getting a signal coming out of that, then we got to check powers and grounds and then call by BCM. But if we are getting signals coming out of this, then we got to find the broken wire that's going in between this and the wiper control circuitry. And that requires removing the fuse box and bunch of other stuff, so we'll see. Alright, so I'm probed into that dark green wire. It has 0.05 volts with the ignition on. So we'll go ahead and turn this on to low. Oh wait, that's high. That's low. There's high, low. It should time out here in a minute. It's waiting on the park signal. It's not getting a park signal to say, hey, you're parked. So it will time out here in a minute. Yep, there it goes. And so we move that up. It's not showing that it's unparked. That's some really weirdness. Okay, off to on. I think we might be running low on battery here. Let me get the battery charger hooked up to it. Yeah, I got that battery maintainer hooked up. It was getting low on battery. I've been doing a lot of testing here. Okay, so it timed out finally. We go to intermittent, low, high, which runs. But we set it off. And it's waiting for that park signal to come back. It's not getting a park. Now the park signal might be working if it parked, but it's not parking because high just sends it there, and then normally it still gets power to the low until it parks. So like it'll go high speed, full speed, then you'll remove this connection here, right? But you still get connection to the park, and it waits for that park signal to stop sending the voltage through this dark green to energize that relay. So it is not parking. It's not parking. But we're getting power here. So I need to go see if we're getting power at this dark green under the hood. Because it looks like that runs, this says, okay, so this goes to the fuse box, and this is the dark green, and it would go into that control side of that relay. So I could go on pin 85 of this relay and check and see if I'm getting voltage there. Alright folks, so I'm hooked up here. I've got the pin 85. You can look here and see that that's 85 right there. Goes here. It is pin 85 right here on the diagram. Right there. Getting no voltage. Let me go double check my switch position. I'm getting voltage there. Still no voltage. I'm connected correctly. We got a problem with that dark green wire. What I'm going to do is get my other meter out and then go hook up back to this dark green wire in here and see if I'm getting voltage on that one. And then we'll know our problem is on this dark green wire. So we'll troubleshoot that. Okay, so that timed out now, I think. Let's turn that back off. Let's just turn the ignition off, on. Turn this on. Okay, we have 12 volts there. Do we have any voltage here? No voltage here. coming off of that relay. Okay, so now I gotta tear this fuse box out and we gotta get to that wire under there and test it under there. All right, so I had to take the battery out to get to this wire, but I'm clipped on it here. It's connector B6 on connector X2. It's a pin B6 on X2, dark green, and this is B6 on X2 right there. So now I got that hooked through the battery, right, and I am back probed in on it. Right here, I got the connector unplugged from the BCM, so there's no voltage getting to anything. So that comes around here on this wire to one side of the battery, hook to those vice grips, and come here, and we got nothing. And if I got my charger plugged into my phone, so if I come around here and just probe this, we got test light lighting up. So we got nothing coming through that wire. Nothing. Now what I'm going to do is put a wire piercing probe on it in there as well, just to make sure my back probe might not be making good contact. So let me do that and then we'll test it again. Okay, so I'm hooked up. I've got no light, no joy on that dark green wire. Make sure I am still working. I am. And I'll come back in here. I'll come back in here and we'll test it. Hang on. Whoa. There we go. Okay. And we'll just test this to make sure my positive path is good all the way into here. It is. So that's a back probe and a wire piercing probe on that wire. I got no joy. So what I'm going to do, because that goes all the way under the console and around and everything, is I'm just going to bypass that wire and we're going to see if we can get it to work. So I will be back. So for pulling wires, I use these fiberglass rods a lot of times, just so I can feed this through here and find a hole, because my hole in the firewall is on that side. So now I'll pull that wire over across here. Now you can see that wire just ties on the end of that rod, and I'll go over here and pull it through. Okay, so I made my solder joint here, and then got the wire pulled up through the firewall, and then I'm going to heat shrink it, and I'm just going to put a little bit of clear nail polish on here to coat this wire, and then I'm going to put the heat shrink over it, and that nail polish will help seal it up. Okay, so here we are. I also went ahead and put nail polish on it back over here where I pierced it with the wire piercing probe. And so now I'm just gonna kind of put this back down in here and re-tape up this harness, and then this side of the repair is done. All right, I got the fuse box all back in. I got the wiring harness all taped up, and I went ahead and ran that wire down around there. It goes back through the firewall. Now we're ready to go do the inside. All right, I got the fuse box back in. I put the relays back in, hooked the battery up. I haven't put all the covers and stuff back on, but I got the wires hooked up and plugged in here. That blue wire is my patched wire. So now let's turn on the wipers and see if they work on low speed. Okay, we're off. High speed, low speed, baby. Intermittent, off. Sweet, that fixed her. All right. Now I just got to put all this crap back together and clean it up, and this one's done.